Hello everyone, I'm your host Pensyfan19 and welcome to the October 2022 Pensyfan Periodical. This is a monthly news series which covers most of the major railroading headlines from around the world, as well as my opinions on them. We have a lot of articles to go over today, so with that in mind, let's get rolling. First off, might as well start off this episode on the other side of the pond, as the A1 Trust has officially announced the name for their next new build project. Even though this project has been in the works for a few years, the V4 class engine now has an official name, Highlander. Such a name for 3403 is fitting since the V4 class spent most of their time in the Scottish Highlands, specifically on the West Highlands line. Even though this relatively low-known class of engines only had 2 members built, the A1 Trust decided to new build the V4 in particular, as it was the last engine designed by the world-renowned Sir Nigel Gresley, not counting that one LNER electric prototype which may get an episode of Remarkable Engines for being Gresley's last engine. Such a decision seems pretty reasonable, considering that the last 2 engines the A1 Trust made were also Gresley engines, as a few parts have already been made for 3403, including a set of tires, a chimney, and a speedometer from a Class 08 diesel. Although the V4 project isn't necessarily new per se, I decided to take this time to spread awareness of its existence with this recent development, as it highlights the next major project the A1 Trust is working on once they finish their P2. Hopefully this one will be completed sooner since this 262 looks much simpler in design when compared to their last 2 projects, and such a new build will bring new light onto an overlooked but noteworthy engine class. Speaking of which, here is some interesting news. NJT repainted another one of their GP40s into a heritage livery, this time paying tribute to the NJ white and dark blue of the 1970s, a scheme which was much more well known on the E8s, but rare on Jeeps, with 4101 happening to wear the exact same livery in the 70s. Also, this story somehow led to my Remarkable Engines episode on NJT's other heritage GP40 being featured in a Railway Age article, to which I say I'm honored to be given such recognition. Speaking of famous YouTubers and rail-related news articles, Justin from the Well There's Your Problem podcast wrote his own article in the New York Times about the labor disputes, while Adam Something also wrote about the folly of Hyperloop for the Times, as well as Alex Davis writing an article about the folly of King of Prussia Rail for Billy Penn. UC Berkeley is to offer a course on Nicki Minaj, partially taught by Nicki Minaj. Railway Age featured an article on why LEGO should make a big boy set. Amtrak had a brief nationwide PTC outage. UTA's frontrunner is auctioning 1970 Comet 1 coach for only $110, although Classy well identified total cost for purchasing and moving just one of these rail cars, just before being featured in a recent episode of Fixing Your Branch Line. Lawmakers want CRRC to be on a blacklist of state-directed enterprises to prevent it from taking over the railcar manufacturing industry. BNSF is suing Northern Pacific Airways for trademark infringement. A Kansas City Southern OCS was sent to a grain elevator. And the NYC subway has released a study for a new service known as the 8 train, basically running on the 3 and 2 lines. I don't really feel this line in particular is necessary for the system since it's proposed to run once every 10 minutes, and it only covers a relatively small portion of the 2 train in the Bronx for what otherwise is the 3 train. That, and because it runs on the Broadway line, it goes through the hassle of using a red 8 roll sign instead of using the never-used green 8. But the point is it doesn't really go through any new regions per se, and I suggest that the MTA should focus on expanding the system first before including small route combos like this. Now here's a follow-up news section for articles covering stories from previous episodes. The Maintenance of Way Employee Union has rejected another contract as the Class 1s and labor unions continue to debate over contract terms before another strike date set for November 19th. A rebuilt CSX SD40 with a GEVO Prime mover has been spotted in Deschler, Ohio. Western Midlands Class 196 DMUs have entered service, while their Arrow commuter shuttle has commenced operations, and SMS Rail Lines is to offer excursion service in November, meaning that 060 number 9 might be regulated to most of these excursion runs, but only time will tell. In terms of stations, congratulations to Shanklin for winning a National Rail Award. Designs and train set renders have been released for Brightline West Rancho Cucamonga Station, also showing that the BLW train sets will likely be in the variation of the existing livery instead of green and white. Speaking of green and white, GO Transit has started construction for their Hamilton Confederation Station, as well as Hoboken Connect, a redevelopment project which, despite being right next to the Hoboken station, thankfully doesn't take away any of the station's real estate or yard space. In other news, Kevin Speed is to offer open access service in France. I have no idea why I included this. The name just sounds funny, and every time I try to find renderings of it, I just find photos of some random guy. Meanwhile, a lettuce outlasted Liz Truss with the shortest reign as a British Prime Minister, direct rail service and Tesco won National Rail Awards, Amtrak has refurbished 2 ex-LARR GP38s for MOW service, 2 NS Widecabs led a 1/3 full 3-car-long train, an official trailer has been released for the Super Mario movie, Port of Tillamook Bay 4406 has been scrapped, and hybrid locomotives seems to be a new trend in alternative fuels as Union Pacific is to construct, or likely rebuild, battery diesel hybrid locomotives for shunting service. Likewise, Nambia is to convert some of their U-20Cs to hydrogen diesel dual-mode engines, while DB and Fortescue is to rebuild their GE engines as ammonia-hydrogen hybrids.
And then you have Germany, who just straight up disowned hydrogen power in favor of batteries and overhead electrification.
But then again, you still have battery-exclusive engines in the works such as this cute shunter from Clayton, as well as diesel-exclusive rebuilds like the refurbished CN AC44s that just entered service. Also, happy 75th anniversary to the Chicago CTA, happy 175th anniversary to Siemens, and happy 30th anniversary to Metrolink. Not too big of a fan of the new logo though. And congratulations to the Rhaetian Railway for setting the world record of a 100-car-long revenue passenger train. After all that, it is now time for this month's Meme of the Month. This month's Meme of the Month is CSX Heritage Units. And now, the top story of the October 2022 Pensyfan Periodical is Metra Max officially revealed! Undoubtedly one of the most controversial decisions by a commuter railroad in recent years, Metra has officially revealed their first of 15 rebuilt SD70 Max, with the engine numbered 500, painted in a modified RTA Heritage livery, and equipped with a Tier 3 compliant EMD 710 prime mover. The Metra Max are the first 6-axle passenger engine since the EMD F40C, which also ran for Metra, and there are rare instances of freight engines being rebuilt for passenger service. Well, technically the Alaska Railroad uses SD70 Max for their passenger runs too, but I don't think these engines were rebuilt like the Metra ones were. Likewise, rail fans across the nation were shocked to see a 1990s road freight engine being rebuilt for commuter service, with many quick to ridicule the decision of opting to rebuild older engines instead of purchasing new ones. This goes back to Metra's notorious habit of solely purchasing engines with EMD prime movers, even if it means refurbishing and rebuilding older engines built for different purposes, as shown with this top story. Although, the only exception to this EMD exclusive engine list is the MPI MP36PH-3S, which is also Metra's newest locomotive class built in 2003, but this class was built with an EMD prime mover, since Metra mechanics are familiar with the relatively simple and effective design of EMD prime movers, even over Caterpillar prime movers in newer EMD engines like the F125. But in recent years, many have suggested that Metra should purchase another engine that utilizes a similar Cummins prime mover and even shares the same tracks as their commuter trains, the Siemens Charger. However, Metra has not stated any interest in these engines, likely due to the high cost of purchasing a brand new engine, likely due to lack of Illinois state funding, when compared to simply refurbishing an existing engine. Another thing that makes this particular engine unique is its semi-heritage livery, in which the modern-day black is on the top half with a black logo, while the rest of it has its lines with the wrong lengths and widths. I'm personally not too big of a fan of this combination livery since, even though they did a good job on other heritage liveries, the proportions of the lines seem too off-scale, and don't really showcase the original RTA 80s livery as easily as their fall-on RTA Heritage wrap from 2017. But speaking of my opinion, I honestly don't mind the Metra Max per se, although I do admit converting a freight engine is one of the most surprising and unusual decisions I've heard from a commuter railroad, but seeing that Metra is continuing their EMD prime mover exclusiveness, I'm just waiting for the inevitable. As a Long Islander, I am more than certain that Metra will hopefully acquire the DE30ACs from the Long Island Railroad, since, as unreliable as they are, I grew up with these engines and really don't want to see them scrapped. But more importantly, they have EMD prime movers, which is an offer that Metra simply can't refuse. Interestingly enough, EMD did make renders of Metra DE30ACs a few years after the LARR engines entered service, but Metra ultimately chose the MP Express. But overall, it'll certainly be interesting to see these long-distance freight engines hauling local commuter trains for one of the most unique commuter railroads serving one of America's most rail-dependent cities. Thank you everyone for watching this month's episode of the Pensyfan Periodical. There have been a lot of rail news headlines for the month, and it'll be very interesting to see what the future has in store for all of these articles. Thank you again for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Have a good day.